Have you ever felt exhausted for no apparent reason? As if something invisible were draining your strength and vitality. Carl Jung, the renowned psychiatrist and pioneer of analytical psychology, explored how our energy can be affected by factors that go beyond the physical, delving into the emotional, psychological, and even the spiritual. In this video, you'll discover 10 surprising causes that could be stealing your energy, and many of them are things you'd never imagine. From toxic people to unconscious mental patterns, you'll be amazed at how these silent thieves can impact your well-being. Stay tuned until the end, because these revelations will not only open your eyes, but also provide you with the tools to reclaim your inner strength. Get ready for a mind-opening journey that could transform how you manage your energy, and most importantly, how you protect it. This will leave you speechless. Relationships have a significant impact on our emotional and energetic state. When we connect with people who value and respect us, we tend to feel good, inspired, and energized. However, some relationships act as emotional drains. In psychology, these individuals are known as emotional vampires, and their presence in our lives is one of the most exhausting causes of energy loss. Though the term may seem exaggerated, it perfectly describes those who, consciously or unconsciously, feed off the mood and energy of those around them. Such people are often manipulative, egocentric, or excessively demanding. Jung suggested that emotional vampires project their emotional deficiencies onto others, seeking others to take responsibility for their well-being rather than facing their issues. Their modus operandi involves using guilt, manipulation, and victimhood to make those around them feel responsible for their emotional state. This strategy allows them to transfer their emotional burdens to others, slowly draining their energy. In some cases, these people may not intend to cause harm, but the effect is the same. Their relationships are so demanding that they end up affecting the well-being of those who support them. One of the most challenging aspects of toxic relationships is the difficulty of breaking free from the cycle. Emotional vampires often draw people into emotional entanglements, leading them to feel guilty or selfish if they don't help. The manipulation can be so subtle that the victim doesn't realize how much emotional strain the relationship is causing until they feel significant emotional fatigue or begin experiencing symptoms of stress and anxiety. So how can you protect yourself? The first step is to recognize the dynamic. If you feel drained, anxious, or emotionally exhausted after spending time with someone, it's a clear sign that something isn't right. Setting boundaries is essential. If someone constantly demands your attention or emotional support without reciprocating, it's important to recognize that you can't always be available. If you find it difficult to set boundaries, seeking support from a therapist or a trusted person may be helpful, as this skill develops over time. Learning to say no and communicate your limits assertively is the best way to keep emotional vampires from draining your energy. Also, remember that taking care of yourself is not selfish. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect and self-compassion, allowing you to maintain emotional balance. Surrounding yourself with people who genuinely value and support you will also help keep your energy at healthy levels, avoiding relationships that leave you feeling drained or guilty. In Jung's theory, complexes are clusters of emotions, ideas, and experiences that form subconscious patterns influencing us automatically. Complexes stem from past experiences, especially those that caused intense emotions or internal conflicts, and can activate without our awareness, impacting our behavior and mood. Jung described complexes as having a life of their own in the unconscious, causing us to react exaggeratedly or unexpectedly, creating a sense of losing control over ourselves. Common complexes include inferiority, abandonment, and rejection. An inferiority complex, for example, can lead a person to feel inadequate, creating a constant emotional drain in social or work situations. This individual may feel compelled to continually prove their worth, which depletes their energy. Additionally, this complex makes them vulnerable to comparison and self-criticism, generating a cycle of negative thoughts that erode their emotional well-being. The same happens with a rejection complex. Someone who fears rejection may act overly accommodating, repressing their opinions to avoid conflict, leading to a constant loss of energy while trying to fit into any situation. The solution to this energy drain is not simple, but it starts with recognizing the existence of these complexes. Jung believed that only by confronting them and understanding their origin could we begin to dismantle them. This process may include self-exploration and therapy, guiding individuals to uncover the roots of their complexes and learn to live without fully identifying with them. For example, through introspective exercises like free writing, you can explore the emotions and thoughts connected to your reactions in certain situations. This practice allows you to recognize when a complex is in control, helping you become aware of its patterns. As you work on integrating these complexes, you will begin to feel significant relief as you stop spending energy on automatic behaviors and thoughts that do not benefit your well-being. Ultimately, integrating these complexes allows for greater control over your emotional energy, helping you live more authentically and balanced. When you stop acting from these patterns, you regain your capacity for freedom and responsiveness, along with your energy. The savior archetype finds identity and personal worth in helping others. This impulse can stem from deep insecurities, an unconscious need for acceptance, a desire for external validation, or a need to feel useful. Often this need emerges in people who took on emotional responsibilities for parents or family members during childhood, growing up with the belief that their role in life is to care for others. The problem is that, unknowingly, they develop a distorted view of their purpose, believing that they are only valuable when helping others. This leads them to prioritize others' needs over their own, unable to say no or set boundaries. This archetype can manifest in various ways, often overlooked because the savior often justifies their behavior with altruistic ideals. A savior might, for instance, constantly intervene in the problems of friends, family, or co-workers, believing it is their role to protect and guide them, even when help was not requested. Another way this manifests is by emotionally investing in others' conflicts, adopting these issues as their own. The savior spends vast amounts of time and energy trying to find solutions and worrying about others without realizing how draining this dynamic is. However, this behavior can also generate resentment and frustration. The savior often expects their sacrifice and dedication to be acknowledged, and if they do not receive the appreciation they feel is deserved, they may feel undervalued or exploited. This cycle of giving, expecting something in return, and feeling disappointed creates emotional fatigue that could be avoided if the savior learned to set boundaries and value their own needs. The savior archetype needs to understand that each person is responsible for their own life, and that their help, however well-intentioned, may not always be necessary or appropriate. To break this cycle, the savior must recognize their tendency to take on others' problems as their own and learn to pause before intervening. This involves developing self-control and self-awareness, as well as trusting that others are capable of facing their own challenges. Help should be given in a balanced, conscious way, recognizing both one's own limits and those of others. The savior needs to accept that it is not their responsibility to save everyone, and that their self-worth does not depend on how much they help others, but rather on their ability to be authentic and care for themselves first. A useful exercise to move away from this archetype is to practice empathy without emotional involvement. This means listening to others and supporting them from a place of respect and understanding, without absorbing their problems as if they were one's own. It's also essential that the savior allow themselves to say no when something is overwhelming or uncomfortable. Though it may be difficult at first, saying no is a form of self-care that conserves energy and avoids emotional exhaustion. Setting clear boundaries and respecting them not only protects the savior, but also helps build healthier and more balanced relationships. Over time, as the savior lets go of the need to save the world, they will experience a significant release of energy. This process doesn't mean stopping help altogether, but rather learning to do so responsibly, respecting personal limits, and without sacrificing well-being. The key lies in understanding that helping others should be a choice, not an obligation, and that energy devoted to one's own needs is equally valuable. Freeing oneself from this archetype will allow the savior to discover their true worth and experience a more fulfilling and balanced life. In Carl Jung's psychology, the unconscious is an immense source of wisdom, energy, and potential, and maintaining a connection with it is essential for personal well-being and authenticity. This inner world contains not only repressed memories and hidden desires, but also qualities, talents, and archetypes essential to the development of our true self. When we disconnect from or ignore our unconscious, we can experience a series of internal blocks and tensions that eventually result in profound energy depletion. This disconnection often stems from lifestyles that prioritize rational control and logic over intuition and exploration of the unknown, ignoring the importance of integrating hidden aspects of ourselves. One of the most common manifestations of this disconnection is the inability to recognize and accept emotions and desires that don't align with our social persona, the mask we use to present ourselves to the world. The effort to repress emotions or impulses deemed unacceptable consumes a lot of energy, as our unconscious constantly seeks to express who we are. And when we repress it, it uses various channels to manifest itself, such as dreams, physical and emotional symptoms, or even unexpected behaviors. For example, a person who suppresses their desire for independence and creativity may feel deeply dissatisfied or bored in daily life, which ultimately translates into emotional exhaustion. Dreams are one of the most powerful channels through which the unconscious tries to communicate with us. But by ignoring them, we miss out on important insights about our lives and needs. Jung believed that dreams confront us with our shadows, those aspects we don't accept about ourselves, such as desires, fears, or unresolved traumas. Every time we avoid confronting these aspects, we waste energy that could be released if we accepted these parts of our personality. Dreams can also offer creative solutions or perspectives beyond the reach of our conscious mind, so paying attention to them can help us make decisions more aligned with our true self. There are various ways to reconnect with the unconscious and unlock this energy. Keeping a dream journal is one of the most effective. By recording and analyzing our dreams, we can observe recurring patterns and symbols that reveal important aspects of our psyche. Free writing is another powerful tool, allowing us to express thoughts and emotions without the censorship of the rational mind. Through these practices, we can connect with the messages and needs of our unconscious, allowing repressed aspects to find a place in our conscious life. Meditation and art are also effective methods for exploring and channeling the unconscious. Meditation helps calm the conscious mind, allowing the unconscious to emerge naturally, while art is a direct expression of deep emotions and thoughts, often manifesting without words. Integrating these practices into our lives helps reduce the energetic burden of repressing parts of our being and instead channels energy toward creativity, personal growth, and authenticity. Reconnecting with the unconscious does not mean losing control of life or letting emotions dictate every decision, but rather learning to listen to and understand the parts of ourselves that we have ignored. This integration allows for a richer and fuller life, where energy is not wasted on repression, but is instead used to cultivate well-being and the genuine expression of our authentic self. Jung described the persona as the mask we wear to interact with the world, an identity created to meet social, professional, or familial expectations. While this mask is useful for adapting to society, it can become exhausting and damaging if we over-identify with it and start living solely to please others. That is, when we try too hard to meet others' expectations, our true essence gets trapped, and the energy we could use to nourish our authenticity is spent maintaining a facade. The problem arises when, out of fear of rejection or criticism, we begin to confuse the persona with our identity, abandoning essential aspects of ourselves. The pressure to conform can lead us to make choices that deep down do not resonate with who we really are, creating ongoing fatigue. This effort can range from pursuing a career or lifestyle that others expect of us to acting overly accommodating in personal relationships, hiding our own opinions or desires. This kind of behavior gradually erodes our energy, as each interaction becomes more of a performance than a genuine expression of our being. For many people, this mask becomes a form of protection. They fear that if they show their true selves, they will be judged or rejected. This mentality is often accompanied by the belief that acceptance and security are only achieved by fitting into certain molds. However, this idea fuels a cycle of self-denial, leading us to hide what we truly feel and think, a process that requires great conscious effort. Over time, the need to please others generates inner tension, a contradiction between our authentic self and the persona we present to the world. This conflict between our mask and true identity not only depletes our energy, but also causes anxiety and lowers self-esteem. People trapped in this role of conformity lose sight of who they really are, which can lead to an identity crisis and a sense of emptiness and dissatisfaction. They often question themselves, feeling that even when they meet others' expectations, something is missing, or that they are not fulfilling their own purpose. In Jung's words, living behind the mask can lead to an alienation from one's true self, where energy is consumed in maintaining a version of ourselves that isn't genuine. Breaking out of this cycle is not easy, as the pressure to conform to social norms is deeply ingrained. However, the first step is to recognize when we are acting to please others rather than from authentic desire. Asking ourselves frequently, "Am I doing this because I truly want to, or to meet someone else's expectations?" can help us detect these patterns. Identifying areas of our lives where we feel we are performing allows us to begin working on self-knowledge and authenticity. One key strategy for freeing ourselves from the pressure to conform is to learn to say no and stay true to our beliefs and desires, even if this means facing potential criticism. Accepting that we cannot please everyone and that it's okay not to meet others' expectations is a liberating act. Over time, this practice of authenticity becomes a renewed source of energy as we stop expending our vitality on maintaining an image and begin to express ourselves from our truth. Additionally, the process of self-knowledge is essential to strengthening our genuine identity. Introspection, meditation, and writing are powerful tools for deepening our understanding of what we truly want and feel. Dedicating time to activities that connect us to our inner self, like exploring our passions and aspirations, also helps us build a life that is more authentic and aligned with our values. This connection with our true self protects us from exhaustion because, by living authentically, we no longer waste energy on maintaining a facade, but instead recharge through activities that genuinely resonate with us. In time, living authentically and free from the pressure to conform can bring a sense of peace and fulfillment that may seem challenging to achieve initially, but is well worth pursuing. It's a path of freedom and self-care where energy flows without barriers or depletion. This practice of authenticity not only allows us to conserve our energy, but also to live with a sense of integrity, satisfaction, and strength, providing us with renewed vitality and greater emotional resilience. Synchronicity is one of Carl Jung's most fascinating concepts, referring to meaningful coincidences that seem to connect external events with our internal life in a non-causal way, without any logical or rational link. Jung defined synchronicity as a significant coincidence of two or more events involving something beyond random probability. Through these occurrences, our unconscious tries to communicate with us, sending messages or signals that, if ignored, can lead to ethical fatigue, as our unconscious will keep sending these messages until we integrate them. These synchronicities often appear during times of personal transformation, such as job changes, new relationships, births, or losses. During these periods, the intensity of meaningful coincidences increases, and if we pay attention, we may notice patterns in the events happening around us. For instance, during a change in your life, you may repeatedly see certain symbols or numbers, or encounter people and situations that seem to align with your inner thoughts or dilemmas. These synchronicities are like winks from the unconscious, suggesting a path or inviting reflection. Energetic depletion occurs when we fail to recognize these signs or ignore them, creating a disconnection from our purpose or intuition. By not paying attention to significant coincidences, we may feel lost or disconnected from our lives, as if unsure of where to go. Resistance to synchronicity often arises from our need for control, as accepting these events means opening up to the unknown and often changing our perspective or making decisions that may require leaving behind certain securities. This rejection of the inexplicable creates an internal conflict between what we want rationally and what our unconscious is trying to communicate. For Jung, synchronicity is a form of linkage between the inner and outer world, where the unconscious manifests itself in the physical world through symbolic events. Ignoring these events means denying a fundamental part of our psychic life, and this repression consumes energy. The key is to accept that not everything in life can be explained logically, and that by opening ourselves to the inexplicable, we allow our energy to flow naturally without barriers or resistance. Synchronicity invites us to trust in life's process, and let our decisions be guided by intuition and the perception of the symbols around us. To harness the power of synchronicity, it is essential to develop an attitude of openness and observation. Keeping a record of events or coincidences that catch our attention can be a way of capturing patterns and symbols that appear during important moments. Reflecting on their possible meaning and how they may relate to our inner experiences allows us to interpret these messages. The symbols that appear in our lives through synchronicities are not random but rather expressions of the unconscious, seeking to make us aware of something we are ignoring or need to integrate for our growth. Jung saw these events as a guide connecting our inner states with external events, suggesting directions or aspects of ourselves that we might otherwise overlook. Thus, if we ignore these symbolic messages, we may feel disconnected from our intuition and our path, as if a part of us were blocked. For example, if you repeatedly encounter certain symbols or coincidences, like seeing butterflies during moments of important decisions or hearing a song that reminds you of a past relationship while evaluating a new one, your unconscious is actively trying to tell you something. Perhaps the butterflies symbolize transformation and freedom, reminding you to embrace changes in order to grow. Symbols can be personal and vary in meaning, but if we stay attentive to them, we may find answers to dilemmas that our conscious mind struggles to resolve. By failing to recognize these coincidences and symbols, we find ourselves trapped in a cycle of resistance, as the unconscious will continue sending these messages in various forms. Ignoring synchronicities is like turning our back on our inner self, which has the capacity to guide us toward a more authentic and fulfilling life. This resistance consumes energy as we strive to maintain rational control rather than open ourselves to intuition and perception. In contrast, accepting these events and seeking their meaning frees us from this tension, allowing us to live in greater harmony with ourselves. To connect with the power of synchronicity, it is important to cultivate an attitude of active observation and openness to the symbolic. A useful exercise is to keep a synchronicity journal, noting any coincidence that captures your attention or repeats, and reflecting on what it might symbolize. By analyzing these events, you can begin to detect patterns and understand how they relate to your current situation, emotions, or repressed desires. The regular practice of recording synchronicities also trains our mind to notice details we usually overlook, helping us integrate these messages into our daily lives. In addition, meditation is a powerful tool for tuning into our unconscious and opening up to the symbolic. Meditation allows us to quiet the mind and reduce mental noise that blocks access to intuition. When we are at peace, it becomes easier to notice and accept the signs life presents to us. And as we integrate them, we experience greater clarity and alignment with our purpose. Often, this clarity translates into smoother decision-making, less resistance to change, and a sense of trust in the path we are following. It is also important to trust intuition as a guide in interpreting synchronicities. While it is possible to seek symbolic meanings in various sources like symbolism books or psychology, Jung emphasized that each person should develop a personal relationship with their own symbols. Symbolic interpretation is an art based on self-awareness and the ability to perceive the unique meaning that events hold for each of us. For example, a specific number or image could mean something entirely different to you than to someone else, depending on your experiences and context. Ultimately, recognizing synchronicity and symbolism in our lives helps us connect with a deeper level of wisdom and self-knowledge. Every time we respond to a synchronicity or symbol with openness, we ensure that our decisions reflect genuine intuition. The energy we regain by allowing the unconscious to participate actively in our lives translates into a sense of flow, vitality, and purpose, eliminating the exhaustion that comes from constantly struggling against the unexpected. Instead of resisting, we live in harmony with both internal and external messages, using the energy of synchronicity as a compass, guiding us toward personal growth and self-fulfillment. Dreams, according to Carl Jung, are a direct window into the unconscious, representing aspects of our emotional life, hidden desires, and conflicts we may not consciously recognize. In each dream, the unconscious manifests through symbols and narratives that, though sometimes puzzling, contain deep meaning about our experiences and psyche. By ignoring or underestimating our dreams, we miss an invaluable opportunity to resolve internal conflicts and understand significant aspects of ourselves. Jung asserted that dreams have a compensatory function. They offer a perspective that seeks to balance the limitations of our conscious viewpoint, helping us make decisions and find solutions to complex situations. Dreams consume psychic energy, as the unconscious uses this resource to create the images, stories, and symbols we see while sleeping. Ignoring or minimizing their importance means that this energy remains trapped in unresolved aspects of our lives. For example, a person who constantly dreams of being lost in dark places may be receiving a message about their fear of facing the unknown or exploring repressed parts of their personality. By not paying attention to these messages, tension arises that drains conscious energy, as the unconscious will continue to express itself through recurring dreams or unresolved emotions until it is acknowledged. Jung believed that dreams confront us with what he called our shadow, those aspects of ourselves that we repress or deny because they are considered unacceptable or incompatible with our self-image. Ignoring the shadow creates a constant inner conflict, as we need to expend energy to keep these aspects hidden. Dreams provide a safe way to confront our shadow, showing us, through symbols and narratives, what needs to be accepted and reconciled within ourselves. By working with the shadow as it appears in dreams, we release energy previously dedicated to repression, allowing us to live more fully and authentically. Interpreting and working with dreams is a way to free this trapped energy. Keeping a dream journal is a fundamental step for those who wish to understand their messages and connect with their unconscious. By recording your dreams each morning, even the smallest fragments, you begin to notice recurring patterns and symbols that reflect important themes in your life. For example, if you frequently dream of water, you may be experiencing deep emotions that need recognition or processing. Each symbol has a unique meaning, and by writing about them and reflecting on their possible interpretations, you can resolve internal aspects that would otherwise continue to generate tension. Dreams also have the capacity to reveal pathways to creative solutions. In the dream state, our mind is not limited by the logical constraints of consciousness, allowing innovative ideas and solutions to emerge unobstructed. This explains why so many people find answers to their problems in dreams. Famous artists, scientists, and inventors, from Salvador Dali to Nikola Tesla, found inspiration in their dreams. This connection between creativity and dreams not only nurtures our creative potential, but also helps us resolve conflicts and obstacles that require unconventional solutions. By working with dreams and allowing their wisdom to flow into our lives, we free ourselves from the need to suppress emotions, conflicts, and repressed desires. This integration gives us access to our full potential, enriching our lives with renewed energy and a sense of authenticity. Dreams cease to be mere nighttime experiences and become an active tool for self-knowledge, transformation, and personal growth, where each night represents a new opportunity to dialogue with the unconscious and recover psychic energy to live with greater vitality and clarity. In Jung's theory, the shadow represents those aspects of our personality that we reject or repress as undesirable. These may include emotions, impulses, desires, fears, or beliefs that do not fit with the image we want to project of ourselves. The shadow, however, does not disappear. It persists in the unconscious, and ignoring it creates a constant tension that drains our energy. This conflict between the conscious self and the shadow generates an internal struggle, where our psyche expends considerable energy to keep these unwanted aspects repressed. The self, or ego, is the part of our identity we wish to present to the world, the conscious image we have constructed and find acceptable. However, the self requires a considerable amount of energy to keep the shadow and all the characteristics we do not want to accept at bay. This effort creates a kind of inner double life, in which one part of us constantly struggles to repress aspects of the shadow, while another part, the unconscious, seeks to express itself and break free. This tug-of-war generates emotional exhaustion, as the conflict is ongoing and drains internal resources, even if we aren't aware of it. Recognizing the exhaustion from this conflict can be difficult, as it may manifest in various ways. Some people experience anxiety, depression, unexplained physical symptoms, irritability, or a constant sense of dissatisfaction. These symptoms are signs that the shadow is struggling to surface and that the self is expending too much energy trying to stay in control. Furthermore, This internal conflict often projects onto our relationships and the way we interpret the world. For example, we might harshly judge others for qualities we actually reject in ourselves, unaware that this reaction is a projection of our shadow. Jung believed that the first step to reducing this tension and releasing the energy trapped in the conflict between the self and the shadow is to acknowledge and accept the existence of the shadow. This integration isn't easy, as it involves confronting aspects of ourselves we have learned to reject, whether due to societal influence, family, or self-criticism. Accepting the shadow does not mean acting on all its repressed impulses or desires, but rather recognizing that they are part of us, and that constant repression only creates suffering. Embracing the shadow allows us to stop wasting energy in suppressing it, and start integrating these aspects into our lives in a healthy way. The process of shadow integration is a path toward authenticity and emotional liberation. This can be achieved through techniques such as deep reflection, dream analysis, introspective writing, and, in some cases, therapy. Dreams, in particular, are a direct reflection of the shadow, as the unconscious uses dream symbolism to reveal emotions or repressed aspects of our personality. Keeping a dream journal and analyzing recurring themes can help you better understand what your shadow is trying to communicate to you and how these unaccepted elements seek to integrate into your conscious life. Moreover, learning to observe our projections is key to integrating the shadow. When we find ourselves judging or criticizing someone intensely, we can ask ourselves whether that rejected quality might reflect something we also deny within ourselves. This exercise not only helps us see others with more compassion, but also allows us to redirect that energy toward our own growth rather than expending it in judgment or avoidance of our shadow aspects. As we gradually integrate our shadow, we experience a significant change in our energy and emotional well-being. The inner tension decreases, and the conflict transforms into a source of creativity and self-knowledge. By accepting and reconciling with our shadow, we not only stop exhausting ourselves in internal struggle, but also release enormous potential that was previously blocked. Once integrated, the shadow becomes a source of authenticity and resilience, allowing us to live with greater freedom and vitality. True integration of the shadow is a process that takes time, but its impact is profoundly liberating. By learning to live with all of our aspects rather than rejecting them, we reclaim the energy we once used to maintain the conflict. This integration allows us to connect with our complete essence, embracing both the light and dark within us, and developing an inner strength that drives us to live with fullness and balance. The fear of change is one of the most powerful and common inner forces affecting our well-being. While the comfort zone is a place where we feel safe and protected, it can also become a prison that limits our growth and drains our energy. Resistance to change is often accompanied by anxiety and stress, as it involves confronting the unknown and letting go of familiar structures. Jung observed that this resistance to change stems from a deep desire for security and control, yet over time, it prevents us from evolving and adapting to life's circumstances. When we avoid necessary changes, our energy stagnates. This stagnation not only keeps us in a state of emotional immobility, but also generates tension, as we are fighting against the very nature of life, which is constant change. This struggle consumes emotional and mental resources, as the unconscious knows we need to move and adapt, but the conscious self insists on clinging to what is familiar. This internal conflict may manifest as a persistent feeling of fatigue, lack of motivation, or even physical symptoms of exhaustion. The fear of change is also closely related to a lack of confidence in our own abilities to face the new. By believing we are incapable of adapting or handling new challenges, we create a barrier that drains energy and keeps us in a cycle of self-limitation. This "I can't" or "I don't know how" mentality is a primary cause of emotional exhaustion, as it prevents us from seizing opportunities for growth and confines us to a narrow view of our possibilities. The more we resist, the more energy we expend avoiding situations that could actually benefit us. To overcome this exhaustion, it is essential to recognize that change is a fundamental part of life and that our resistance only intensifies the internal conflict. Accepting change as something inevitable and natural allows us to release the energy we previously used to cling to the known. This process can begin with small steps, such as allowing ourselves to break routine, trying new activities, or even changing our environment. Each small adaptation helps our mind grow accustomed to the new and develop the confidence that we can handle what comes our way. Another useful strategy is practicing visualization of positive changes. Imagine what your life would be like if you embraced change rather than fearing it. Visualizing these changes enables you to see that although change involves uncertainty, it also brings opportunities for growth and renewal. This mental exercise reduces fear while training our mind to view change as beneficial rather than a threat. Furthermore, when we welcome change, we start to experience a sense of freedom and lightness as we no longer carry the burden of maintaining control and resisting the inevitable. Finally, it is important to remember that change is a tool for self-discovery. Each transformation reveals aspects of ourselves that would otherwise remain hidden. By allowing ourselves to change, we expand our identity, strengthen our resilience, and discover inner abilities and resources we didn't know we had. This approach energizes us rather than draining us, as each experience helps us build a more complete version of ourselves. Accepting change as part of our life helps us step out of our comfort zone, not only to grow, but to live with greater vitality. Carl Jung believed that humans are part of a greater whole, and that nature plays a fundamental role in our psychological and spiritual well-being. Living disconnected from nature affects not only our physical state but also our emotional and energetic health. Nature is a source of renewal and balance, and when we isolate ourselves from it, we lose an essential connection with our surroundings and with ourselves. This disconnection creates a void that we often try to fill with activities that, rather than recharging us, drain us even more. In modern society, we spend most of our time in artificial environments, surrounded by technology and exposed to constant stimuli that keep our minds on high alert. This busy, distraction-filled lifestyle distances us from contact with the earth, natural cycles, and the rhythm of organic life. This separation makes us lose a vital connection to the tranquility, peace, and simplicity that nature offers. On an energetic level, this disconnection prevents us from recharging from a natural source, replacing it with activities that bring tension instead of peace. Jung affirmed that nature reflects deep aspects of our psyche, and by interacting with it, we can find answers and reach states of calm that the artificial world cannot provide. Nature acts as a mirror that reflects our deepest emotions and thoughts. Observing its rhythms and balance helps us better understand our own inner needs. This dialogue with nature requires no words. Simply being in a natural setting, listening to the sound of a river, observing a forest or feeling the wind on our skin, activates a form of meditation that aligns our mind with our body. The lack of contact with nature also affects our perception of time and patience. In a natural environment, processes unfold at a slow, steady pace. A tree takes decades to grow, and the seasons follow a cycle that cannot be rushed. Living disconnected from this natural rhythm, we often rush, expect immediate results, and push ourselves to meet goals without considering the time needed to mature. This fast-paced, achievement-oriented mentality causes us to lose balance and depletes our energy as we move away from the calm and patience nature teaches. Living in harmony with natural time helps reduce stress and restore a sense of peace and stability. Isolation from nature weakens our spiritual connection, separating us from a profound source of renewal and meaning. Carl Jung believed that connecting with nature allows us to transcend the ego, helping us feel part of something larger than ourselves. In the natural world, we can experience awe and reverence for the intricate web of life, a perspective that artificial environments cannot replicate. This sacred connection fosters humility and gratitude, enabling us to view our lives and challenges from a broader, more meaningful perspective. Without it, we risk becoming consumed by material concerns, losing touch with a higher purpose, and facing feelings of emptiness or disconnection. Re-establishing this bond with nature doesn't require drastic changes. Simple practices, such as taking walks outdoors, gardening, watching the sunrise or sunset, or spending a few quiet moments in a park, can be powerful ways to reconnect. Nature not only revitalizes our energy, but also helps alleviate stress and reduce anxiety, allowing our energy to flow more freely and effortlessly. Scientifically, time in nature reduces stress hormones like cortisol and stimulates the release of endorphins, dopamine, and serotonin, all of which elevate mood and promote well-being. This rejuvenating effect is exemplified by the Japanese practice of Shinrin-yoku, or forest bathing, which involves mindfully walking through forests and immersing oneself in their atmosphere. Research shows that forest bathing boosts the immune system and alleviates symptoms of anxiety and depression, making it a profound source of healing for both body and soul. By weaving moments of nature into our daily routines, we reclaim a vital source of energy that fosters balance and conscious living. It reminds us of our place in a larger cycle and offers peace through simplicity. Reconnecting with nature renews not only our physical energy, but also our sense of wholeness and connection to the universe, allowing us to live with greater vitality and purpose.